going on, Son of Chelsea? Here again for a news update video. It's not going to be the usual Let's Talk Chelsea because, as you can see, I'm on a webcam. The audio isn't as good. I'm on holiday. I've just gone on holiday away from London for a few days, and obviously Chelsea decide once I go on holiday away from the Son of Chelsea studio, now we break all the big transfer news. So on the way down here, I've seen from Fabrizio Romano, Chelsea have opened official talks with Sevilla for Jules Koundé. He's the main target. Centre-back negotiations ongoing to reach an agreement. Koundé is open to accept Chelsea as his next club as he wants Champions League football. Now it's up to the two clubs. Firstly, I wouldn't say that the name of Koundé is a massive surprise, given if I was to sit here, if someone was asked me, if Chelsea are definitely going in for a centre-back, Koundé would have been one of the names I would have brought up because he has been linked to Chelsea over recent months. I think I may have even spoke about him on the channel before. I just think there's a bit of a surprise because we haven't heard anything about this, and it's coming out from Romano and it's coming out from several other reporters now to back it up regarding Chelsea's interest in this player. And also the fact that I don't think a lot of us felt that centre-back was a key position. I was on Alex Goldberg's podcast with Jay McIntosh yesterday, and it's something that I was thinking about next summer. Maybe it's a smart move from Chelsea in being proactive and trying to solve a problem a year early potentially, and really sign someone who's going to be a long-term sort of replacement for, if we're talking in a back three, you'd say Dave, but of course, Dave isn't always a centre-back. He's a very versatile player, but we know Thiago Silva is probably only going to be here one more season. We've got the contract issues with Christensen and Rudiger. Question mark over both of those at the moment, maybe more so from the Rudiger side than the Christensen side, but we don't know what the situation is going to be there. Kurt Zuma's got a big question mark over his future, at least in my opinion, and I think this signing would at least solidify in my view that I think he'll be off this summer. I just don't think we could have all the centre-backs, even if we had Koundé. So you have that element. So I understand it logically from Chelsea getting ahead of the game. I mean, we can, of course, obviously bring up Mark Guehi and Fikayo Tomori here. And maybe in some ways, if the fee is around 40 to 50 million, we're using the money to sell two bright academy prospects at centre-back to buy one of a similar age. Now, Koundé is rated very highly. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, and I definitely suggest go and read scout reports, go and listen to people who I've listened to who do watch him on a regular basis. The stats speak for themselves, and they show a very impressive young defender who's thrived and excelled in La Liga for Sevilla. I think there is a slight concern over his height. That doesn't mean that that's something that's going to completely demolish his chances in the Premier League. We've seen, Thiago Silva isn't, the tallest centre-back, but he's a world-class talent who spots danger. And I think if Koundé can be that type of player, that does not mean that he can't thrive in the Premier League. I just think it's something to consider. I don't think it's an irrelevant point. The Premier League is very physical, and I think you have to understand that. Koundé will be coming up against a type of teams that don't, like, it's the obvious one, but Burnley, teams who will pose an aerial threat that you just don't get in other leagues. I don't think that's a regressive way of thinking. I think that's just the reality of the Premier League. The Premier League has evolved, but there still are things in the Premier League that make it very different to other leagues. So I think that's something to consider, but that doesn't mean that you don't make the signing. That doesn't mean that Koundé in his game couldn't improve over a period of time and adapt to that. If Tuchel wants to stick with the back three, then you could absolutely see him filling in at right centre-back potentially. And that can help sometimes deal with those height issues if you've got a back three, which I think that he could slot into. I guess the question mark would be, it's kind of like with Guehi and Tomori, we've got a Champions League winning defence, and I think most people feel very comfortable with that back three. And is he going to get in front of all of them over a season? And if you're spending 40 to 50 million for a player who may not be first choice, may not instantly slot into the first team, and may have to wait a year, is it a deal absolutely crucial to our summer business? But I did see a point someone bring up, you look at Man City, the way they've stocked up in their squad, having so many fullbacks, fullbacks that would start for a lot of clubs but don't start for Man City. And if you want to be the best, it's good to have a strong squad. So I understand that point of view as well. My concern is how this is going to impact the other moves. We still absolutely need a centre forward. If we want to compete for the Premier League title this year, we need someone who's going to bang in 20 goals. Does this move for, say, 40 to 50 million? It's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be a 20 million move. It's probably going to be much higher than that. How does that have a knock-on effect to the rest of our business? You know, if we were to get the deal over the line, because it would be a bigger deal. It wouldn't be the biggest we could make. It would probably still be much less than what Declan Rice would be, or of course what Erling Haaland would be. So I'm intrigued in that because, you know, I still personally believe that central midfield and striker are things that are much more of a priority for Chelsea. I mean, our defence is pretty strong, but you know, you do have to bring in those elements of unpredictability about form, about injury, and also the contract situation of a lot of these players. And also, you don't know, someone like Dave, for instance, is getting older. You know, Thiago Silva, you don't know if these players are going to regress in form over a year, even though they have been absolute quality for Chelsea. I can understand the club looking longer term, which is what I applaud. You know, I'd rather us be a longer term thinking club than, you know, bringing in younger players that we can develop and get better. So, you know, I think it will be exciting for people because they just want to see transfers, they just want to see signings. But as I've always pointed out, and you know, Koundé maybe is on the line on this in terms of my thing with all targets that have come up with Chelsea, is he going to upgrade our first team? Now, if we're looking at the centre-back situation that we currently have, probably not instantly, but if in 2 to 3 years he, or maybe even less than that, he breaks into the first team and he becomes that centre-back that solves the issue, so that then if Mark Guehi's thriving somewhere, if Fikayo Tomori is having a brilliant career, we won't regret selling those players. Even though, of course, everyone can bring up, why don't we just give them the opportunity? That's kind of my general feeling, that I think I've said in recent videos, that I think it's on the club to bring in top class players. So you've got to look at Koundé's numbers, you've got to look at what he's done at Sevilla and why he's so highly rated by a number of clubs, and maybe Chelsea have seen him, think this is a great opportunity to get the deal done, worry potentially that he could be snapped up this summer by someone else, or may find it more difficult to sign him next year, so they're solving a problem a year early, and then you've bolstered the squad for the new season. As I say, I think the knock-on effect will be, I would say, one of Christensen, Rudiger and Zuma. I'd still say Zuma's the bigger one because Christensen and Rudiger are first team players, so I'd still be looking at Kurt Zuma's future mostly. But I would say that if Koundé comes in, I just can't see a situation where every single, you know, we have Dave, Thiago Silva, Christensen, Rudiger, Zuma and Koundé. We have all of those centre backs in the squad, even though if we are playing a 3-back system. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me that all those players would be at the same time. I think you would see an exit there, so that's something to consider. And yeah, I think it's good to see something progressing from Chelsea. I think something had to give because, you know, we are now late July, moving into August, and the season's only a couple of weeks away. So once again, it's proof that Chelsea do work in silence, as we know. And we've seen this over the years. Timo Werner came out of absolutely nowhere. It came within a couple of days, just instantly we had a gritty deal for Timo Werner. It's happened many times over the years in terms of deals that you don't suspect Chelsea were going to do, and they do it. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it. You know, if you're someone who does watch a lot of Liga and does watch a lot of Koundé, please let me know your thoughts on him. Do you think he'd be an upgrade? What do you think about the knock-on effect here? I'm not being too dramatic. I'm enjoying my holiday. I'm enjoying the Bournemouth game later. I'm very excited to see how Chelsea do in the pre-season friendly. Finally some football to speak about as we get into some pre-season friendlies before we start the new season. So thank you guys for watching. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you again.